大家好，我现在是在日本东京。今天呢，我所在位置是日本外国记者协会，在这里呢，接下来会有一个或日本还有我们中华社会非常关注的讲会，就是福原爱请乒乓球选手和她的前夫张宏杰两个人的这个结婚之后的离婚关系啊。接下来我们在这里举行一个记者会，两人呢是不是真的是终于达到了和解？和现场给大家直播的画面，在现场大家能看到，我们身后有很多日本媒体，还有很多外国的媒体，包括来自中国大陆的媒体，还有台湾的媒体。那么接下来呢，在会是历时1个小时左右，东京时间的2点到3点钟。开头呢会有福原爱出现，就是他在这个关系之后呢，应该是首度露面。然后呢，在这个记者会上，福原爱他会宣读一段他本人的声明，估计呢这个声明应该是很简短的声明。那么根据日本媒体之前的报道，就是说在这个记者会开始之前，他们会获取了一部分的信息，就是福原爱和江宏杰两个人离婚之后的关系，特别是关于这个孩子的抚养权的问题，现在呢是应该已经达成了和解。但是呢，具体这个和解的内容呢，今天我们在现场还要看双方的律师会做一个怎样的解读。那么今天呢，在现场会有福原爱的律师2位律师，是押九保个人律师和刘前代去律师。江宏杰方面呢是一位日本律师，叫做大约奈子律师和3位律师许胜波律师，有4位律师共同参与今天的这次记者会。那么今天的这个记者会呢，是首先要先爱他，然后先陈述一段他的声明，就是关于这段关系，最终呢是双方的结论。接下来呢是有进入提问的环节。那么4位律师啊共同登场，就是福原爱方面的律师和江宏杰方面的律师共同登场，其实是一个非常罕见的事情。因为我们知道福原爱和江宏杰两个人是5年的婚姻，他们两个人是在2016年结婚的时候结婚，之后呢在5年之后啊，双方就离婚了，是在2020年7月份的时候。之后呢是两个人在台湾的法院判处了2个子女，一个女儿一个儿子，两个人呢是共同的抚养权。共同抚养权之后是福原爱在2022年7月份的时候把儿子呢从台湾带到了日本。那么之后呢，江宏杰是在这里2022年7月份的时候选择召开了国际记者会，就是他向媒体控诉说福原爱是单方面的把孩子从台湾带到了日本，然后他在东京的这个家庭法院呢是要求他进行了裁决。那么东京家庭法院呢，最终呢他们是给出了一个保全命令。保全命令的意思呢，就是说把这个孩子带到日本这种行为，东京家庭法院的态度是他们认为是爱应该把这个管得，然后现在法院将决定保护到全局。但是呢，后来这个在这个接下来进来就是福原爱她并没有把儿子交给江宏杰方面。那么之后呢，江方呢他又说呢，他暗示说有可能会要求法院方面进行强制执行。但是强制执行最终也是没有能够进行，因为福原爱说他并没有收到法院方面这一方面的联络。之后呢，在我们中文媒体大家很关心的就是因为有一个报道说有可能会要求这个江宏杰会把这个问题呢继续上诉到刑事法庭。那么他们说呢，根据日本这个刑法226条的规定呢，如果福原爱带到第3者的话，那么就有可能申请这个法院，所以有可能会有劳役的这个。那在这样的情况下呢，就是媒体会问说福原爱是不是会进行妥协，所以最终呢是达成了和解。那接下来呢，这个记者会还有几分钟的时间，我们现在就换一个场景，让接下来的记者来
Hi, everybody. Welcome along to our press conference today. Well, this time last year, Fukuhara-san was involved in a bitter and very public child custody battle. Fukuhara-san's ex-husband, Chang Hun-chae, who is also a table tennis star, said that Fukuhara-san had abducted their son and took him to Japan, violating a joint custody agreement set in Taiwan. That row has now apparently been settled, and Fukuhara-san today wants to speak. Well, she wants to make a very short statement about that settlement that she has forged with her ex-husband. She's going to make a slightly unusual press conference today. She's going to make a very short statement to everybody. She doesn't want to take any questions, and then lawyers for both sides will explain the details of the agreement and take questions from the room. That's the arrangement. So, Fukuhara-san, よろしくお願いします。
よろしくお願いします。皆様こんにちは、福原愛です。本日はお忙しい中お集まりいただきまして誠にありがとうございます。
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fukuhara Ai. Thank you very much for taking the time to attend here today.
この度は私のことで皆様にご心配やご迷惑をおかけしてしまい、誠に大変申し訳なく思っております。
I am very sorry for causing concern and trouble for everybody regarding my personal matter.
ジャンさんと和解いたしましたので、この場をお借りして皆様にご報告をさせていただきます。
I have come to a settlement with Mr. Chung, which I would like to take the opportunity today to report.
これからはジャンさんと協力をして、子供を育てていきたいと思っております。
From now going forward, I would like to cooperate together with Mr. Chung in the raising of our children.
皆様にはどうか温かく見守っていただければ幸いです。
I hope that you will continue to watch over and support us from now.
今後ともよろしくお願いいたします。
Thank you very much.
Thank you. And now Fukuhara-san will leave the room. So she will exit through that door. She'll be escorted away. And then lawyers for both sides will make a statement.
こちらを用いまして福原さんにご退出いただきます。その後は代理人の弁護士の方々からのお話になります。
ありがとうございました。
Thank you. Well, so the lawyers now, as I said, will each make a statement. Up first, I believe, is Obuchi Aiko-san, who is the attorney, Japanese attorney for Chang Hun-chae. お願いします。
はい。では私の方からお話をさせていただきます。昨年ここ外国特派員クラブで、会見を開かせていただきました。
So I will speak first. Last year, we held a press conference also here at the Foreign Correspondents Club of Japan.
福原さんが、面会交流期間を過ぎても、息子さんを江さんに戻さず、自身を親権者に指定するよう求める、申し立てを行いました。一方、江さんからはこの引き渡しを求める、申し立てを行いました。そういった事案において東京家庭裁判所の方から、江さんに、子どもを引き渡すように福原さんに命じる審判が下されました。
So at that time, we reported regarding this case that Ai Fukuhara had failed to return their son to Mr. Chang even after the agreed-upon visitation period had ended, and that she had filed a petition to be designated as custodian, while at the same time, Mr. Chang filed a petition calling for the child to be returned over to him. We further reported that the Tokyo Family Court at the same time had issued a judgment which ordered Ms. Fukuhara to hand over the child.
その後の経緯と結果について、ご報告させていただきたいと思いまして、本日皆様にお集まりいただきました。
So we are holding this press conference today for the purpose of explaining to you all the subsequent process and results.
コウさんはすでに息子さんの引き渡しを受けて日本を離れましたので、本日の記者会見を出席することできませんでしたが、コウさんより日本の皆さんへのメッセージを預かりましたので、コウさんのメッセージ読ませていただきます。中国語の原文で読み上げますので、大渕先生に中国語に通訳していただければと思います。日本語に通訳していただければと思います。
Mr. Chang's son has already been returned to him and they have left Japan. Therefore, he is unable to attend the press conference here today. However, we have received a message from Mr. Chang to the people of Japan, which I will read on his behalf. And it will be read first in the original Chinese, and then Ms. Obuchi will interpret it into Japanese.
大家好，谢谢大家于百忙之中抽空前来。
皆様こんにちは。お忙しい中お集まりいただき誠にありがとうございます。
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for taking the time for being here today.
这件事情的详细经过，我已经委托律师们替我发言。在这里，我想要和大家致上诚挚的感谢。
本件についての詳しい経緯は代理人の先生方に委ねますが、私からは皆様に心からの感謝をお伝えしたいと思います。
I will leave the detailed explanation of the proceedings regarding this case to my lawyers. However, I would like to express my sincere thanks to you all.
关于我在日本的所有诉讼，谢谢日本法院都能做出公正且合理的判断。
日本の私に関するすべての訴訟において、日本の裁判所が、公正で合理的な判断を下してくださったことに感謝しております。
I am grateful to the Japanese courts for their fair and reasonable decisions regarding all legal cases relating to me, which have been taking place in Japan.
另外，去年我在这里召开记者会之後，得到非常多支持的声音，这真的给了我很大的鼓励。
また、ここで記者会見を開かせていただいた後、皆様からたくさんの応援の声をいただき、それが私にとって本当に大きな励みとなりました。
And in addition, after holding the press conference here, I received many words of support, which were truly a great encouragement to me.
最後，我想再次感謝日本的法院及全體國民，謝謝你們。
最後に日本の裁判所および国民の皆様に再度感謝を申し上げたいです。本当にありがとうございました。
And in closing, I would like to once again express my appreciation to both the courts and the people of Japan. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you, by the way, to Mary Joyce, our interpreter today. Now, I believe we're going to have a statement from Fukuhara-san's attorneys. That's Masato Oshukubo and now Sakai. Oh, ごめんなさい。すいません。I think Sakai-san is going to make a statement.
Ms. Obuchi, it's still continuing.
申し訳ございません。
はい、では続けさせていただきます。先ほどこの引き渡しを命じる審判が下されたという話をいたしましたが、それが昨年の7月21日になります。その時にですね、通常の審判に加えて緊急性がある場合に認められる保全の審判というものも下されました。
So as mentioned before, there was a judgment made ordering the handover of the child. This was on the 21st of July last year. And at that time, in addition to this usual judgment, there was also a decision for temporary restraining order given, which is something granted in cases of urgency.
はい、その保全の審判というものは、不服申し立てがなされるかなされないかにかかわらず、直ちに効力が生じるものでして、強制執行が可能となるものです。
Such orders are effective immediately and can be enforced whether or not an appeal or complaint against this is lodged.
はい、江さんとしてはもちろん任意の引き渡しを求めていたわけですけれども、ちょっとそこの部分が難しそうだということで、強制執行の申し立てを行いました。
And Mr. Chang had, of course, already been requesting the enforcement or the implementation of this. However, because it seemed that it would be difficult to expect or to have the return done as requested, as ordered, Mr. Chang then lodged a motion for its compulsory execution.
しかしながら、強制執行を実施する際、調査をしましたところ、福原さんと息子さんがすでに中国に渡っているということが判明しまして、結果として強制執行を実施することができませんでした。
However, in the process of filing this motion for the compulsory execution of these, or as part of the investigation which occurred, then it became apparent that Ms. Fukuhara had already left Japan for China with their son at the time the motion was being submitted. And as a result, the enforcement could not be carried out.
福原さん側からは審判に対して不服申し立て、抗告と言われるものですけれども、抗告がなされました。
Ms. Fukuhara's side lodged a complaint or an appeal, or known as an appeal, against the decision.
抗告審は東京高等裁判所において審理されましたが、そちらの方も昨年の12月21日に決定が出まして、抗告申し立てを却下する決定が出されました。
And this appeal against this was heard by the Tokyo District or the Tokyo High Court. But in regards to this, also a decision was made by the court on December 21 of last year, which dismissed this appeal.
その、抗告却下の決定に対しても、最高裁判所の方に、特別抗告が申し立てられました。
And a special appeal was then also filed against this dismissal with the Supreme Court.
一方、江さん側からは警視庁に対し刑事告訴を行いまして、受理がされました。
Meanwhile, Mr. Chang filed a criminal complaint in September last year with the Tokyo Metropolitan Police, and this was accepted.
このように紛争が長期化する中で、刑事事件の代理人に、なられた先生方からですね、私の方に和解の申し入れがなされました。
As the dispute was thus being protracted at this time, a request for settlement was made to me by Ms. Fukuhara's lawyers in the criminal case.
代理人間で協議を重ねまして、この度息子さんを福原さんが江さんに引き渡すという内容を中心とする和解が成立いたしました。
After a series of discussions between the respective legal teams, a settlement could be reached, centering on Ms. Fukuhara returning their son to Mr. Zhang.
和解の具体的な内容についてはここでは控えさせていただきますが、決して江さんが息子さんを福原さんに会わせないといった内容ではなく、今後双方ともに息子さんの親として、協力して育てていくという内容になっています。
I will refrain here from discussing the specifics of the content of the settlement. However, to be clear, they do not include anything which forbids Ms. Fukuhara from seeing her son, but rather includes that both parties will cooperate in raising him as his parents.
共同親権は維持したまま、監護権については江さんに依然として帰属したままという内容になっています。
Joint legal custody will be maintained, while the physical custody will remain as before with Mr. Chang.
台湾側のことについて私から補足しますと、今回の和解により台湾において福原さんから申し立てられていた不服申し立ても取り下げられましたので、現時点において台湾においてもいかなる争いもない状況となっています。
And from the Taiwanese side, I would also like to add that as a result of this settlement, the complaint which had been lodged by Ms. Fukuhara in Taiwan has been withdrawn. Therefore, at present, there is also no dispute of any kind in Taiwan.
江さん側からは以上となります。
And that is all from Mr. Chang's side.
Thank you very much, and apologies for the early mistake. So we are now going to have, I hope I'm got it right this time, a statement from the lawyers from Fukuhara-san's side. So that would be Sakai-san first, is that right? Yeah, よろしくお願いします。
福原さんの代理人の弁護士の酒井と申します。本日はどうぞよろしくお願いします。
Hello, my name is Sakai. I am one of the lawyers representing Ms. Fukuhara. Thank you for this opportunity today.
先ほど大渕弁護士からもご説明があった通り、福原さんが刑事告訴された後、福原さんから依頼があり、私たちの法律事務所で福原さんの刑事事件の弁護人に就任しました。
As has been mentioned by Ms. Obuchi, after Ms. Fukuhara was charged with a criminal offense, upon the request of Ms. Fukuhara, our law office was appointed to act as her counsel in regards to this criminal case.
その関係で最初に一つ皆様にお伝えさせていただきたいことがございます。
And there is one point in relation to this which I would like to first convey to you all.
前述の経緯から私たちは福原さんが刑事告訴をされて以降、刑事事件の弁護人の立場で本件に関与するに至りました。ですので、その限度において本件の和解にもタッチすることになりました。
From the circumstances which have been mentioned, as Ms. Fukuhara received after Ms. Fukuhara received the criminal charges, in our capacity as her legal representatives in this criminal case, that is it is as a result of that, or to that extent, that we have also been involved in the settlement of the case at hand today.
こういった経緯があるためですね、刑事弁護と今回の和解成立にかかる以外の事項、具体的にはですね、私たちが弁護人に就任する以前の事柄や民事事件等につきましては、私たちはその詳細を把握できておりません。
And so because of this background, we are not aware of the details of any matters other than those which relate to her defense in the criminal charges and the reaching of this settlement, specifically matters which are concerning things which happened prior to our appointment as legal counsel or in the civil case.
皆様におかれましては、まずはこの点につきご理解いただければと思っております。
So first of all, thank you for your understanding on this specific point.
では本件の話に移らせていただきます。
And I'll now speak to the issue at hand.
まず本件は福原さんが面会交流期間を過ぎても江さんに息子さんを戻さなかったということに端を発しております。
So first of all, this case began from Ms. Fukuhara's failure to return their son to Mr. Chang after the agreed upon visitation period had ended.
以後、息子さんを江さんに引き渡すように裁判所から命ぜられても、福原さんが息子さんを江さんに引き渡さなかったこと、これは不適切であったと言わざるを得ません。
It must be said that Ms. Fukuhara's subsequent failure to hand their son to return him to Mr. Chang, even after a court order to do so was issued, was inappropriate.
ただ、なぜ福原さんがそのような対応をしてしまったかということについては、当時、福原さんがこの件を相談していた方から、そのようなアドバイスをされていたためであったというふうに聞いております。
However, as to the reason for Ms. Fukuhara unfortunately taking such a response, we have been told that she had been advised to do so by those that she had been consulting with regarding the case at the time.
今回、私たちからは率直に福原さんには態度を改めないとダメだという話をさせていただきました。
And we therefore frankly spoke with Ms. Fukuhara, telling her that there was a necessity for her to change her attitude.
これに対して福原さんにおいても理解し、納得をしたことから、私どもの方から大渕弁護士の方に刑事弁護の過程で和解を申し得るに至りました。
Ms. Fukuhara was understanding and also in agreement or convinced of this point. Therefore, we as her legal team then approached Ms. Obuchi to make a settlement in the process of the criminal case.
江さんにはこちらからの和解に応じていただき感謝しております。
And we are grateful to Mr. Chang for accepting our offer of suggestion from our side.
息子さんのためにも紛争がいつまでも続くのは決して良かったとは言えません。
For the sake of their son also, it could not have been positive if this dispute had continued indefinitely.
今回このように和解という形で解決できたことは大変望ましいことだと考えております。
We therefore believe it is indeed desirable that the dispute was able to be resolved in this form of a settlement.
福原さん側からは以上になります。
And that is all from Ms. Fukuhara's side also.
Thank you, everybody. It's a rare, I wouldn't call it quite a happy ending, but at least it's a settlement, which is good. A lot of these disputes end not so happily. So we will take questions from the floor, from working journalists first, and then to the rest of the room. If you would like to ask a question, could you raise your hand and indicate, please, that you would like to question. Mary, do you want to translate that just in case?
これで質疑応答に入りたいと思いますが、ご質問の方は日本語でも英語でも大丈夫です。ご質問のある方は手を挙げられて、そしてご質問される際はこちらの前のマイクの方を使ってください。
I don't see any hands. どうぞ。Alice and sorry, first Alice, then Fred. Yeah. Yeah. どうぞ。
Hi, my name is Alice French from Nikkei Asia. Thank you very much for today. I'm sure we're all wondering about the context and the timing of this happening, as Japan has just approved a bill in Parliament to consider introducing a joint custody system to Japan. I'm wondering if Mr. Cheng's lawyers can talk just a little bit about the impact of the fact that Japan does not have a joint custody system here and the fact that that was different from the situation in Taiwan, and whether he has any thoughts on the current bill that's being proposed in Japan's parliament. Thank you.
Thank you. Just on the point of clarity, has the Parliament okayed that bill, or is it just the Cabinet, the government? I think it's
The Cabinet has submitted
Cabinet,
it to the Parliament. Yeah, sorry.
はい、通訳いたします。日系アジアのアリス・フレンチと申します。今回の和解という、今日本の、社会的な文脈、そしてこのタイミングについて質問させていただきたいんですけれども、まさに今日本の国会の方で共同親権をめぐる法案などが議論されているというタイミングになっています。これは江さんの弁護人の方々にお伺いしたいんですけれども、日本に共同親権という制度がないということが、今回の実験、今回のケースにどのような影響がもしあればあったのか、そして台湾との制度の違いについてのコメント、そしてもしチャンさんの方、江さんの方で、この日本の今の状況についてのもし今までのコメントなどで紹介できることがありましたら、それも合わせてお願いします。はい、
じゃあまず私の方から、お答えしますと、そうです。日本では共同親権というものに対して馴染みがなく、日本の方々の理解も深くはないので、共同親権であるということで子どもを連れて行ってもその親権があるから問題がないんではないかというような考え方も聞かれたんですけれども、実際のところ共同親権と言いましても監護権がしっかりと決まっていますし、そういう意味では日本の方の思っている、平等に両方とも権利があるというイメージは違うのかなというふうに思っておりまして、しっかりといかなる権利があるのか、共同親権の中でもですね、台湾でしたら主要扶養者という名前なんですけれども、主に育てる人というのが決まっていますし、権利も非常に明確に決められています。本件に関しても看護者は江さんというふうに決まっていますので、そういう中でや やはりそのルールをしっかり守らなければ問題になるということで、共同親権と一言で言うといろいろな内容が実際は含まれていて、ケースバイケースであるということと、あと
すいません、ちょっと通訳の方。
長いですかね。そうですね。ケースバイケースです。ごめんなさい。
So first of all, in regards to the system of joint custody is something which is not very familiar to many people here in Japan. This is also a system which is not very deeply understood by many Japanese people as well. I have heard, for example, it's said that under joint custody, it means that both parents have the same rights, the same custody. It means there's no problem if one of the parents who shares this joint custody then takes the child somewhere else, for example. However, in reality, even under an agreement of joint custody, there is always a decision which has been made in regards to the physical custody of the child and other details which have been agreed upon within this joint custody as well. It does not necessarily mean that there is just the exact same equal or the same rights for both of the parents who are sharing the custody of the child as well. And in Taiwan, for example, it is always decided, or there is someone who is set as the main custodian of the child, even under the system of joint custody. And they have very clear rights, which are also agreed upon and set within this system in Taiwan as well. This means that, of course, if the rules under even an agreement of joint custody are not followed, this will indeed be a problem there. So this is different according to the context, and it also differs case by case as well.
はい、でそういう中で、この件が起こりまして、日本においてそれがどのように判断されるのかというところは非常に私たちも不安にも思っていたところですけれども、日本の裁判所には非常に公正に合理的に判断していただけたというふうに考えております。
And so within this case or this context here in Japan, we were also, must be said, concerned about what kind of decision the Japanese courts would make in regards to this case as well. And we are glad to say that their decision that was made was indeed both fair and reasonable.
もし台湾での共同親権の運用について何か。
台湾の共同親権の運用について補足します。
And I will add and also point about the operationalization of the joint custody system in Taiwan.
台湾では共同親権が原則となっています。
In Taiwan, actually, joint custody is the basic precondition or the usual assumption.
裁判官が双方の意見と子どもの最大利益を考え、扶養者を決めますし、権限も監護権も明確にするので、台湾では実務上の運用は大きな問題となっていません。
And in Taiwan, so with joint custody as the basic principle, the courts, the judge will then hear the opinions, the positions of both of the parents, and also consider what is in the best interests of the child. Based on this, it will issue a clear decision in regards to the rights and the physical custody of the child. However, this is not usually something which becomes a significant problem.
今後、もし日本が共同親権導入する予定がありましたら、ぜひいろいろ交流したいと考えています。
And so if Japan is to introduce a joint custody system in the future, I hope that there can be exchange or engagement between the two parties or between Taiwan and Japan in regards to this.
以上です。
この案件を通じて、非常に共同親権に対する理解も深まりましたし、皆様にも情報を提供することができたのではないかと思いますし、今後日本が共同親権を導入するに際して参考になる部分も大きいと思っております。
And so we believe that this case has also been an opportunity to greatly deepen the understanding on the issue of joint custody here in Japan and share more information regarding this as well. So we hope that it can form a kind of a reference in the future if Japan does indeed introduce this system.
Thank you very much. Fred, you're next, please. And we encourage questions from the Chinese media as well.
他に中国や他の国のメディアの方からのコメントは質問もどうぞ。
Fred Varco, freelance. First, for Fukuhara-san's lawyers, what were the grounds for the appeal that she made against the custody or against? She made an appeal, you said, to the Supreme Court. What were the grounds for that appeal? And just going back to the issue of Taiwan and Japan and perhaps China as well, because she was in China, right? were there worries about enforcement of court orders, being as there's no diplomatic relations between Taiwan and Japan, and China is not always friendly to Japan?
フレッド・バルコフリーランスです。2点ほど質問があります。まず最初、福原さん側への質問なんですけれども、最高裁判所の方に福原さんが提出した広告の申し立てについてなんですけれども、その時の理由ですとか福原さん側の主張でもしいることがあればそれについてお願いいたします。そして2点目の方なんですけれども、今回は国際的に日本そして中国にも行かれていたということで、その国際的な問題であったということで、その執行するにあたってその国際的であったということでどのような問題がもしあればあったのか、そして例えば日本と台湾の外交関係の問題、そして日中の関係でも必ずしも友好であるということもそうじゃない時もありますので、その3者の間の関係がどのような影響があったのか、執行についてというのが2点目です。
まず最初の質問の特別抗告についてですけれども、冒頭申し上げましたとおり、私ども刑事弁護の担当をしておりまして、民事訴訟の方についてはですね、詳細を把握しておりませんので、ちょっとこの場でお答えすることができないような状況になっております。申し訳ありません。
So first of all, in regards to the first question, as we were not the legal team who were working on her civil case, but we were appointed to work on her criminal case. As mentioned before, we don't have the details that we're able to share in regards to that case. Sorry for that.
あと2点目の執行の点ですけれども、確かにこの紛争の過程で福原さんがですね、お子さんを連れて中国に行ったという時期がありました。
And the second question as to enforcement, as was mentioned, indeed, there was a time when Ms. Fukuhara did take her son to China as these proceedings were, or this dispute was still underway.
こういう場面がありましたので、大渕先生側の方でもですね、刑事告訴といったそういう手続きを取られたものというふうに理解しております。
And we understand that this is the fact which led Ms. Obuchi and her team to submit the criminal complaint against Ms. Fukuhara in regards to this.
繰り返しになりますが、裁判所の決定に背いてですね、こういうことになったということについては、端的に本当に反省をしなくてはいけないことになるなというふうに思っております。
And this may be repeating what was mentioned before, but the fact that such a situation arose not following the decision of the court is indeed something which is regrettable or which needs regret upon.
私の方からも回答させていただきます。
I would also like to make a comment.
はい、やはりその本件に関しては、中国に息子さんと福原さんが、滞在していたというところが一番難しいところでした。
In regards to this case, the point that Ms. Fukuhara and her son had been staying in China was indeed the most difficult point of this case.
裁判所の命令を苦労して取っても結局強制執行ができないということでは意味がありませんので、その部分については今後課題ではないかというふうに考えております。
And so even after going through the very difficult process and achieving the order from the court for the return of the child, the fact that that could not then be enforced, even compulsorily enforced after that, means that, of course, well, what meaning does that judgment then have? And this is something which could be a challenge going towards the future also.
That seems to, sorry, if I can just get a point of clarity, that seems to suggest that, to me at least, that Fukuhara-san fled to China or went to China to escape the jurisdiction of the Japanese legal system. Would that be an incorrect assumption?
今のお話を伺いますと、福原さんが日本での判断から逃げるために中国に行かれたというふうに理解はできるんですけれども、そのような認識で正しいのでしょうか。
そうですね、福原さん側にもですね、おそらく思いというものはあると思うんですけれども、代理人といたしましてはですね、冒頭申し上げた通り、お子さんを戻さなきゃいけないというような決定が出た後にそれに従わなかったことということについては端的に本当に不適切な行為であったというふうに思っております。
じゃあそこだけ強く先にすみません。As Ms. Fukuhara likely had her own thinking at the time, however, as her legal representative or as a lawyer, I'd say, as mentioned before, the fact that she did not follow the order which was given to enforce the return of her child is something which was indeed inappropriate action.
押久保でございます。補足させていただきます。状況につきましては、今、大渕先生とうちの酒井の方からご回答申し上げた通りでございますが、我々の方でですね、福原さんにお話しさせていただいて、ご理解をいただいた上、また大渕先生、それから台湾の張先生にも、江さんにも大変なご尽力いただいてですね、こういうふうに和解になったということについては非常に喜ばしいことだと思っております。以上でございます。
My name is Oshukubo. I am also representing Ms. Fukuhara. One additional comment in regards to this. The main details have already been explained by the respective lawyers in regards to this. However, after we spoke with Ms. Fukuhara and spoke with her about this situation and had her understanding of what was happening and what was necessary, thanks to the great or the dedicated efforts of Ms. Obuchi, Mr. Xu, and also Mr. Chang himself, we were able to, after great efforts, reach this settlement, and we are indeed very glad about this result.
Thank you. We have a question from Teddy, and you've got Yamaguchi-san, right? Yeah.
Teddy Jimbo with the video news. I'm going to ask questions in Japanese. 日本語で質問させていただきます。福原さんの刑事なので弁護人ということになると思いますが。の方にぜひ聞きたいんですけれども、もし可能であればですね、最初に福原さんにそれではダメだってことを言って、納得したっていうお話を伺いましたが、彼女はそもそもどういう考えで、その子供を返さなくてもいいというふうに、別の方からのアドバイスだというお話はありましたが、思っていたのがどういう理屈で彼女は先生方からの助言をもらうまではそれでも済むと思っていたのか、それから実際にそのことを説明したら本人は納得したというお話でしたが、説明したらすぐにストンと分かりましたっていう話だったのか、それとも実際は何かやはり本人なりの考えがあって、説得をしなきゃいけなかった点とかがあったのかですね。もしあったとしたらそれは何なのか、ちょっとお話しいただける範囲で教えていただければと思うんですけれども。
My name is Jimbo of Video News. I would like to ask a question of the lawyers representing Ms. Fukuhara in the criminal case, as to the extent that you are able to answer. You mentioned that when you first spoke with her and said that her actions, well, that is not what you should be doing, and that she was able to then understand this. I would like to ask, first of all, what kind of reasoning or thinking that she had in deciding not to return their son at the time. You mentioned that it was advice from others, but if there was any particular reasoning that she had in mind before she heard your advice or recommendations in regards to this, to the extent that you're able to share. And the second point, you mentioned that after explaining the situation to her, she did understand this. I would like to ask, is this something that she immediately comprehended and understood straight away, or if it did take indeed some process of convincing of this? And if so, if there was any particular point or particular issue which she needed further convincing of?
まず説得についてですけれども、その点についてはですね、比較的ですね、私どもの方できちんと説明をしたところ、素直に応じていただいたというようなそういう印象であります。
First of all, in regards to whether she needed convincing in regards to this, after we made our quite thorough explanation about this, it was quite smooth and quite soon after this that she did indeed understand the points that we were sharing and agree.
それと最初の質問ですけれども、これは福原さんと話した私の印象というところではありますが、やはりお子さんに対するですね、思いというか、そういうものが非常に強くて、渡せなかったんだろうなと、それは私の感覚ですけれども、そういうふうに感じています。
And as to the first question, this is not something directly from her, but my impression or sense from speaking with her is that the reason for not returning was indeed based on her very strong feelings for her child.
ただその点につきましては、今回の過程できちんと理解をしていただいたという認識ですので、もちろん今後はこういうことが二度とないように、私と代理人もですね、きちんと見守っていきたいなと今後も思っております。
However, in regards to that point, we do believe that we do have her clear understanding in regards to this now, and so we, as her lawyers, will continue to support and follow to ensure that such a situation will not be recurring again.
本人はダメだと分かってたのに、お子さんの思いが強かったので、手放せなかったという、そういうことです。
And so to clarify, that was that even though she understood that what she was doing was not wrong, because of her strong feelings, she decided not to return the child for clarification.
そうですね。私の捉え方というところになりますけども、そうなのかなと思いますけれどもね。
My understanding of the situation seems apparently so. It's but from her personal sense.
Thank you. Mari?
AP 通信の山口と申します。今日はありがとうございます。最初の質問にありました親権のありようの違いについてお尋ねしたいんですけれども、これは必ずしも福原さんのケースとは違ってもう少し広い話になりますが、そもそも今回の福原さんのケースは親権の日本と台湾との在り方によって何か影響が大変出るケースであったのかどうか、そして日本に単独親権という制度の中でも今回のような和解ができたということは今の制度でも解決がこのようにできるということなんでしょうか。この質問の理由といいますのは、今の共同親権を導入するにあたりまして、例えば女性が離婚した母親の方がDV の被害者であったりいろいろするケースが守られるのかというような懸念、あるいは家父長制度制度によってなかなか日本で対等に協力して育てるという概念がない中で、むしろ問題なのではないかという反対の声がありますので、その制度を変える必要があるのかないのか、そこにちょっと関連した質問です。よろしくお願いします。
My name is Yamaguchi of the Associated Press. I'd like to ask a question which is related to the first question about the differences in the systems regarding custody in Japan and Taiwan. This is not necessarily limited only to Ms. Fukuhara's case, but also as a broader issue as well. So I'd like to ask first of all whether this case or this decision has had any particular impact or influence on the systems in Japan and Taiwan in regards to this, and also the fact that a settlement was able to be reached here in Japan, despite the fact that it is a country which does not have a system of joint custody, whether that does indicate that even under the current system, resolution in these kind of cases is indeed possible. The reasoning for asking this is currently amongst the debate around the introduction of the joint custody system here in Japan. There is, for example, voices which are in opposition for this, saying, for example, in the case where the woman or the mother has been a victim of domestic violence, if whether this can be enforced or the joint custody can indeed be enforced in a successful way after in these kinds of cases, or also under the kind of patriarchal system here as well. So there are these oppositional voices in regards to introducing this in Japan from that perspective. So is it indeed necessary to fully change the system and introduce joint custody in order to be able to have a resolution of these cases, or what can be done under the current system?
で私から回答を先にさせていただきますと、まず本件について、共同親権であることが影響したのかどうか、結論においてですね、あと審理の過程において影響したのかどうかということに関しては、最初に申し上げた通り、不安はこちらとしてもどういう判断がなされるのかということでありましたけれども、裁判所の方には非常に合理的で公正な判断を下していただいて、台湾での判断、日本での判断、おそらく相違ないものになったと考えますので、影響はほとんどなかったと考えております。
So I'd like to first respond to the initial question as to the impact on the decision or of the decision in regards to the joint custody in the two different systems in the countries. This was indeed something which we were concerned about as to what kind of decision would be made here in Japan in a country without this system. However, as mentioned before, the court did indeed make a very reasonable and fair judgment in this case. So looking at this fact, I think that the decision in Taiwan or the decision in Japan, despite the differences in the system, I don't actually see any differences in the decision made by the courts or the decision, whether the decision would be made differently in the courts according to these different systems as well. So I would not say that there was any particular influence in regards to that.
はい、あとその、DV であったりとか、そういう特別のケースにおいて、共同親権の制度であってもですね、もちろんそういう場合には単独親権を認めるべきですし、それは台湾においてもそうだと思うので、後ほど台湾のケースをちょっとご説明いただきますけれども、でそういったケースを除いて共同親権にした場合に、その対等に権利を持つから何も決められないのではないかとか、ずっとトラブルが続いていくのではないかという印象を持たれていることもあるんですけれども、実際のところはですね、やはりその看護者であったり決定権限であったり、そういったものを明確に定めて定めた上での共同親権ですので、そういう意味では何も決められないとかずっとトラブルが続くということでは決してないというふうに考えております。
And as to the question regarding cases of domestic violence or other specific or special cases, of course, even under a system of joint custody, such cases as this, sole custody should be what is issued in these kind of cases which have these specific considerations. Perhaps we can hear some examples from the Taiwanese experience in regards to this as well. However, other than that, there is often an impression that under joint custody, this means that the same equal rights are applicable to both of the custodians. This means that nothing is decided and the trouble would then therefore continue beyond or indefinitely as well. However, the reality is even under a joint custody system, there are very clear decisions which are made in regards to the physical custody of the children, the decision-making powers or rights in regards to the children and so on as well. And this is part of the system of joint custody there as well. So the thinking that under joint custody things like this are not decided, they are not set, then the trouble would then indefinitely continue is a misunderstanding.
本件について台湾にとってはどういう意味があるのか少し補足したいんです。
So I would like to explain a little bit about what the significance of this case is in the Taiwanese context.
台湾、先ほど申し上げた通り、台湾では共同親権は原則となっていますけれども、やはり国際結婚に関わると実際の運用はどうなるのか大きな問題となっています。
As mentioned before, the joint custody is taken as a basic principle in Taiwan. However, in the case of international marriages, this is something which is becoming quite a significant problem.
本件の意味としては、国際離婚の時に共同親権と単独親権の国、こういう国際結婚、国際離婚に関わる時にこの共同親権どういうふうに運用されるのか大きな意味示されていると思います。
And this big problem is indeed in regards to the implementation of this. So the significance of this case when we consider international either marriages or divorce and considering different countries which have either a joint or sole custody systems, then this case is very significant in regards to showing how this can be implemented.
また共同親権の詳しい内容についても必ず共同親権ではなくて極端の例がある場合、例えば DV の場合で単独親権の選択肢も同時に存在しています。
And while joint custody may be a basic principle, of course, in regards to the details or when this is actually going to be the decision, this is done case by case. So in the case, for example, of domestic violence, then this is a time when there would be the choice of sole custody available as well.
日本にとっては既存の法制度の中でどういうふうに共同親権検討すべきなのか 今後も深く考える必要があると考えております。
So I believe that in Japan also there should be very deep consideration on the issue of whether indeed or for introducing a system of joint custody or also what can exist within the existing legislation as well.
Thank you. Well, I think a lot of people would be interested in the details, any details at all you can shed on the actual how this custody is going to work out. We have a question from online. This is from Irene Chen from Liberty Times. Will Fukuhara-san come to Taiwan to see her daughter in the near future? If you're not in a position to answer that question, can you shed any light on exactly, where the children will live, what sort of access they'll have to Fukuhara-san? Will they be able to, for example, come here on birthdays, holidays, that kind of thing? Those are the sort of details I think that people would like to hear.
おそらく多くの方が関心を持っているものとして今後その共同親権はどのように運用されるのかどのように実施されていくのかということだと思うんですけれども、一つオンラインで質問が届いているので紹介いたします。こちらはリバティタイムズのアイリーン・チェンさんからの質問、台湾の記者からの質問なんですけれども、質問の内容は今後福原さんが台湾に娘さんに会うために近い将来に台湾に来られるのかということなんですけれども、この具体的なことについてもしお話ができないのであれば、例えば今回合意された内容としては、今後子どもはどこに住むのかですとか、どのような頻度で面会することができるのかですとか、例えばお誕生日ですとかお休みの時に日本に来ることが可能なのかですとか、答えのできる範囲でそのような具体的な今後のことについてお話しいただければお願いします。
はい、和解の具体的な内容についてはですね、やはり子どものことでもありますので、ここで詳しくお話しすることはできないんですけれども、本当に協力をして親として育てていくという方向性ですので、日本でも台湾でも過ごす時間はありますし、十分ありますし、会う時間お互いにしっかり確保してということは定められています。
As to the concrete details or the specifics of the settlement, because this is, of course, an issue concerning a child, we're not able to go into the specific details here. However, because the agreement is in the direction of cooperating together as parents to raise the child, this means that the child will be able to spend sufficient time both in Japan and in Taiwan, and also have sufficient time meeting with both the parents is included and decided within the settlement.
あと一つ補足します。先ほど娘さんの話がありましたけれども、娘さんのことは基本的に今回の和解の範囲外ですし、今回もともと日本で問題になっているのは息子さんの方ですので、その件に関しての和解ということです。
And also to clarify, the question which was submitted referred to Ms. Fukuhara's daughter. However, in regards to this case which is at hand, the settlement and also this discussion here in Japan, this is regarding their son, just to make sure that is clear as well. So the daughter is not part of the discussion either of this settlement or of the contents today.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. If anybody in the room would like to ask one, the gentleman at the back here. Yeah.
こちら後ろの方、最後の質問にします。Which one? Sorry? じゃあまず TBS からお願いします。
次でよろしいですか。
My name is Shi. I'm a journalist of Asian digital media from Taiwan. But I'm sorry, I'm going to ask a question in Japanese. 台湾のグローバルニュース、足尾エセ電子のシーと申します。よろしくお願いします。子供について詳細を確認したいんですけれども、この子供は去年ここで記者会見が行われた時点で子供はもうすでに日本に行って でその後福原さんがその子供を、中国に連れていてまた戻って和解してで今、子供が台湾に、江さんが連れて帰りましたってことでよろしいでしょうか。よろしくお願いします。それと、時間とタイミングもし教えていただければお願いしたいんですけれども。
I would like to clarify some details around their son. First of all, at the timing of the press conference, which was held here last year, we understand that the son was here in Japan. It was after this that Ms. Fukuhara took their son to China, then came back to Japan where the settlement was reached, and their son is now together with Mr. Chang in Taiwan. First of all, we'd like to check that these facts are accurate, and if you can also explain the time or the schedule, the timeline of this as well.
私から回答させていただきますと、会見をした時点でどこの国にいたのかということは定かではないので私からお答えすることはできないんですけれども、強制執行を申し立てようとした時点8月9月そうですね、その8月の後半から9月にかけて中国にいるということがこちらの把握した限りで分かったということです。その後、和解の、話し合いが代理人間で進められてで和解が成立したので、日本において引き渡しがなされたということで今は息子さんと、江さんは日本を離れたということこれはお答えできることだと思います。
So I would like to first respond to the extent that I'm able to. At the point when we held the press conference here last year, it was not clear the whereabouts or which country they were in at that time. So I'm unable to say whether they were in Japan at that time or not. However, later on in August and September, when we were trying to file the motion for enforcement of the judgment which had been issued, the order which had been issued by the court, it was at that point where we came to understand that Ms. Fukuhara and her son were at that time in China. Later on, as the legal teams started their discussions towards the settlement and after the settlement was reached, the handover of their son from Ms. Fukuhara to Mr. Chang was conducted here in Japan. And now Mr. Chang and his son have left Japan. That is to the extent that I'm able to respond.
Thank you. And the final question will be from the lady in the front.
では前の方からお願いします。
And sorry, I didn't see your hand.
先ほど手気づかなくてすみませんでした。
SMG 上海東宝テレビ中国東宝テレビ、東京支局の記者宋と申します。具体的に共同親権の場合、お子様が、お母様の下で、年に何回何日間何ヶ月間一緒に暮らしできるかどうかお伺いしたいです。
My name is So of a Shanghai broadcaster, correspondent here in Tokyo. I would like to ask, in the case of joint custody, how many days or months in every year is the child able to spend together with the mother?
そうですね、先ほどもそういった質問をお受けしたと思うんですけれども、やはりその会の具体的な内容、今後どちらでどれだけどういうスケジュールで過ごすかということは公開しないということになっておりますので、そこは申し訳ございませんがお答えすることができません。
As was the response to a previous question as well, part of the agreement is not to make public the details in regards to the concrete schedule or dates, how much time will be spent by the son in the respective places and so on. So I'm sorry, but I'm not able to respond to answer that.
All right. Well, thank you very much. As several questions have indicated, there is legislation going through the Diet right now to deal with this issue. This very difficult and emotive issue of. There's a gentleman with his hand up at the back. Are we allowed to take one more question? Is that all right, everybody?
皆さんもう一つだけよろしいですか？お時間としては。いいですか？
これ最後の最後の。
スポーツニッポンの佐藤と申します。本日はありがとうございます。双方の先生どちらかお答えいただける方に ご回答いただければと思うんですけど、今日このタイミングで会見をされた理由、あとこちら福原さん側の代理人の先生に伺えればと思うんですけど、今回にパリオリンピックが行われることになってまして、卓球は日本は男女ともにメダルへの期待がかかってますが、福原さんからそのオリンピックでの解説をしたいなどの意向をもし聞いていらっしゃるようであれば、ちょっと伺えればというふうに思います。よろしくお願いいたします。
My name is Sato of Sports Information. I would like to first ask both legal teams to respond as to the reason for holding the press conference at this particular timing. And a question for Ms. Fukuhara's lawyers. We are, of course, approaching the time of the Paris Olympics, and Japan has high expectations for having medals in table tennis in both the men's and the women's. I'd like to ask if there is any, for example, intention or a desire on the part of Ms. Fukuhara to act as an announcer for the table tennis for the Olympics and so on.
まず今日どうしてだということについてはですね、端的に双方の合意が整ったのが最近だったというのが答えになります。
So first of all, to briefly respond to as to why the press conference is being held today, this is simply because it was very recently that the agreement regarding the settlement was reached between the two parties.
あとオリンピックのことについては直接本人から私は聞いておりませんけれども、今後どういうような活動をするかとかですね、そういうことについては少しゆっくり考えていきたいというふうに申しておりました。
And in regards to the Olympics, we have not heard from her specifically in regards to this issue, or she has said that she would like to take some time to carefully think about what she will be doing in the future from now.
Thank you very much. And that is the last question. Well, as I said, there is legislation going through Parliament at the moment to debate this issue of joint custody and to settle it once and for all. It's a very emotive issue and involves many people. So it is quite nice to see four lawyers sitting here calmly discussing it and not throwing things at each other and arguing. It's a hopeful time for the future. So thank you very much for everybody for coming and explaining the case. Thanks to Fukuhara-san, who had to leave, of course, and thanks to Mary Joyce for her impeccable interpretation, as always. Do show your appreciation to the speakers, please, today. Thank you.